And good morning and welcome to another episode of Money Matters. My name is Nev and we are going live only on one deal away. So I have incredibly amazing things to cover, anywhere from what's going on in Europe and why did Trump change his mind or did he? And did you know that being a woman these days is a luxury? I will explain it all and all of the inequality and everything else that you can expect to see in this show. But above all, we're also going to cover some of the markets and understanding. And finally, I will share with you a leaked document from Europe that you definitely want to know because we've all been wondering, is what's happening around the world real or fake? And that is what we're going to cover today. And good morning and welcome to another episode of Money Matters. So, let's talk about what's going on around the world. Trump is postponing G7 summits, which you may or may not have known, and he is wanting to expand. So I guess we're gonna go from G7 to G11. Is that kind of how it's going to work? Because he's basically saying, what had happened is that there was supposed to be a G7 summit happening this month. Hey, happy June, y'all! Happy June. So summer is around the corner, and we'll see how it goes. But originally and typically, you would have, seven countries that got together, and the G7 is made up of United States, Italy, Japan, Canada, France, Germany, the UK, and the European Union. And so what happened is that he, of course, was inviting everybody. They were going to go to Camp David. However, Angela Merkel over from Germany said, you know what, I'm not coming in person pending that this virus thing doesn't, slow down. Then we heard the same thing kind of happening from, I want to say Trudeau, maybe even up. Folks were saying, I will attend, but I can't put my health to risk. So he officially postponed it and said that he is going to invite Australia, Russia, South Korea, and India to join, and basically said that current format is very outdated group of countries. So I am postponing it because I don't feel that G7 is properly represents what's going on in the world. I will agree with it, but I also think that there's some additional countries that maybe are missing from this thing. Call me crazy. There's some additional big countries, whether we like them, hate them, don't have an opinion or feeling. So, anyways, it's definitely one of those things that it's interesting to see. So we will see kind of what's going on now. We're going to jump across the pond, as they say, because I want to share with you what Spain is doing. As you know, Spain has been ravaged, so to speak, with the virus, just like most other countries. As the official reports kind of come in. Again, it just depends on the narratives you want to believe. There are people saying yes, it does that. People saying no, it doesn't. People saying it's real. People saying it's fake. And you know what? It will be a while before we know stuff. And if you stay tuned in, I will actually cover a leaked report that might confirm or might make you question your own thoughts and opinions. But so Spain is set to kind of reopen and has been slowly reopening, but they're set to reopen in about 2 weeks to the tourists. They want people to come in, but they're realizing that they are in dire economic need, as I would say just about every country in the world is, and so they're doing something interesting. Spain introduces basic income scheme to tackle poverty. This is one of those things that I've been talking about. That this is coming to a country near you, and so Spain might be one of the first. Because I don't know if it's first. I haven't done the research, so I apologize. So I'm saying first, even though I know it's not the word. I know it's not the word, but it's one of the first tier. Let's call it that countries that does that. So. They're basically saying they're going to give a maximum of $1,126 per family. So let's take a look at what's going on. So Spain's government has introduced a basic monthly income for struggling families amidst the hardship caused by the outbreak. Well, caused by the shutdowns of everything else and caused by shutting down of the economies around the world. So I don't think the outbreak did it. It's the closing of the economy that has the impact on it. And I understand that the closing of the economy was due to the pandemic. So I get it. I get it. I get it. The move announced on Friday was part of last year's coalition agreement between Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez and Pablo Iglesias, the head of the left wing alliance. So Iglesias said that the crisis unleashed by the pandemic had forced government to speed up its implementation of the measure. So one of the things they're saying is we've always wanted to do this anyways. Now we're just doing it a bit faster. So they are basically expected to spend an annual 3 billion euros or 3.3 billion US dollars to in the hope to end extreme poverty, which affects about 600,000 homes in a 1.6 million dollar and 1.6 million people. I don't know why I put dollars. I keep saying dollars every time I put numbers. So there goes that. So it will guarantee an income of 462 euros or $512 a month for living adults living alone, and then of course additional 139 euros per person at a monthly maximum of 1,015 euros. Now, how they exactly came up with the number, I don't know. They didn't necessarily share here in the article. But it's one of those things that's kind of interesting, and so I don't, if this is the only income that people are getting, I'm afraid it's not enough. I mean, it's a start, but it's not enough, because we're talking about $1,000 basically, okay, $1,100 a month, and last time I was in Spain. I was in Barcelona in February of this year, and it's June. So what, like 4 months ago? So right before all the closures and pandemics and everything else, I was in Spain, and at that time, I was doing some live reporting out of Spain, and I was sharing with the folks that, the average rent in Barcelona is about $1,500. So this, while nice, it doesn't really do, or sorry, 1,500 euros. So that's a little bit more, maybe like 1,700 US dollars. So if you get income of 1,000 euros a month, but your rent is 1,500 euros a month, where does food come in? Where does basic living supplies and medical stuff and all these different things, like where does all of that go? And where does this one incredible luxury item for women, women only get to enjoy this luxury, and I'll explain shortly of what it is. Where does all of that play in? So anyways, like I said, it's nice, but let's keep on reading. The funds would be allocated in line with other income, so anyone with a low-paid job would have their salary topped up to meet the threshold outlined on Friday. So if you earn less than 1,000 euros, they'll give you additional money just to kind of catch up. But the problem is that while, again, lovely, it doesn't do much of anything to help individuals sort of be able to live. So it's interesting to say the least. The Ministry for Inclusion and Social Security said it would mean that every home would have a guaranteed average annual income of 10,000 euros, which is quite lovely. But again, they're saying that the measure was expected to benefit about 850,000 homes, affecting a total of 2.3 million people, which is 30% of whom are minors. About 100,000 families would begin receiving the money on June 1st. So today, they're going to start receiving the money. And it'll be kind of interesting to see, is this going to be checks? Is it going to be debit cards, similar to kind of what happens here in the United States, where the food stamps is basically a debit card sponsored by Chase? And Chase actually makes quite a bit of money from all of that stuff. I don't know if you knew that, but there you go. A bit of inside information just for you watching Money Matters. Rise in poverty. We're going to see this left, right, and center. this is going to be happening all over the world. It is going to affect the poorer countries first, but it is coming to the country near you or in the country that you live in. There are hundreds of thousands of people jobless, triggering a rise in poverty that has outstripped the 2008 global financial crisis. Here in the United States, we have well over 40 million people that find themselves there. Many families, particularly in Madrid, which is the largest and the capital, have for the first time found themselves forced to stand in line for food handouts at local churches and neighborhood organizations. And we're seeing that again. We're seeing that everywhere, y'all. We are seeing this in what they call the third world countries, developing countries, developed countries. We are seeing that everywhere, and it's not going away. Spain's gross domestic product is expected to contract by 9.2% this year due to the pandemic, while the unemployment rate is forecast to rise from 13.8% to 19%. I actually think that that's going to go higher, and we're seeing that being higher as well, in United States. So again, this is going to be worldwide thing, and what we are seeing right now is nothing, absolutely nothing, as what we're going to see coming. As I keep saying, this is only phase 2. You haven't seen anything yet, as they say. So it will definitely be interesting times. Now, I know you have been wondering, what in a world are you talking about luxury and women, and what in a world? So here we go. Luxury good, where the tampon tax is highest and lowest in Europe. Around the world, women pay high tax for period supplies like pads and tampons. These items are included in high tax sale brackets in many countries, ignoring possible reduction permissible for essential items for every declaring them luxuries before the law. So, if you didn't realize that it's a luxury being a woman these days, well, you definitely know it now. And around the world, there are demonstrations for everything, and you already know what's going on in the United States, where people are demonstrating. People have started demonstrating against the lockdowns since the killing over in Minneapolis. People have been rising higher and stronger and louder than ever. We are seeing the demonstrations around the world. Hong Kong and Germany and Italy and Spain and Serbia. People around the world are angry. And, this is one of those things that somebody was talking about. I can't remember which show, so my apologies to the producers and the creators of the show that I cannot quote right now of who did it, because every day I listen to a bunch of different podcasts and shows and stuff as I'm, working around the house and doing things, going for a walk and that kind of stuff. And they were talking about the whole, like, bread and circuses. In Rome, they used to keep people pretty occupied and easy to kind of work with and deal with, and sort of not rise by giving them bread, meaning feeding them, and then giving them entertainment. Well, entertainment is gone. We've cut sports, we've cut the live shows. You watch some of those nightly shows. I don't watch TV, but nightly shows, and I've seen some clips and stuff where people are kind of like me right now, sitting at a home trying to do the live show and stuff, and they're doing those like ba-dum bum bum jokes, but they're not really funny, and there's no live audience to laugh. So then you just have this like awkward silence. It's really weird. Feel free to check it out, look at it. I'm sure that it's on YouTube or Brighteon or wherever else that you are watching live shows. And it's really awkward, and that awkwardness is actually what's kind of weird and funny. So there's no entertainment. Now we have a bunch of people unemployed, not making as much money, bored out of their minds, so they're not getting bread either. So no bread, no circus, and guess what? You get riots. And that's exactly what we're getting. But we will talk about that in a moment. I want to go in and talk about the tax. So because I find this really interesting, because it's another proof of inequality around the world, that depending on color of your skin, gender you're born in, country you're born in, color of your eyes. It depends on how well you can live and how safe you can be and what you receive and what you don't receive. And, it's time for change, y'all. It's time for change. And I know this is not the channel for that stuff, and I don't know how you feel. You could agree, you could disagree. Let me know what your opinions and thoughts are. This is just where I personally stand, that it's time to change. It's time to, stop the insanity of making somebody be better or worse off because of certain things that we can't even control. None of us control where we're born, who our parents are, what the color of our skin is, whether we have a learning disability or not, what color of our eyes are, what gender we are. We don't get to choose. Gender is sort of the gender identity, but let's talk about the sex given at birth. You don't get to choose that stuff. So anyways, many countries haven't lowered their tax rate, with Hungary exhibiting the highest rate at 27%. Scandinavian countries at around 25%, and Greece even raised the so-called tampon tax to 23% as part of the country's austerity measures, according to Eurostat and media reports. And here is a lovely sort of a graph where you can see where it's the highest and lowest. And as you can see, there's only one tiny country in entire Europe where it's tax-free, and that's Ireland. So thank you, Ireland, for creating a bit of equality, a bit more of equality in this world. So there you go. You can see that Spain is trying to, they're looking to reduce stuff. Okay. All right. We're going to cover this stuff, but before we do that, I clicked on the wrong thing, y'all. All right. Hydration. And now, what you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about German official leaks report announcing COVID-19 as global false alarm. Now, before I go into this stuff, this is the reason why we do this stuff live here at One Deal Away, because what I am about to share here with you very likely will result in the video being taken down from the other media sources. And so, unfortunately, this one may not live on the net for a very long time, which is the reason why it's incredibly important for you to join live. Because when we go live and when we stream and when we kind of join on the platform, we can have a bit more freedom of speech, talk about stuff, talk about the controversies. Again, you don't have to believe or not believe any of this stuff. I'm not calling for any craziness or any of that stuff. I just want to share the stuff that I have been able to find and locate so that, we can have a discussion. We can have some creative thoughts. So anyways, let's talk about what happened. So it was basically leaked documents that have reached the German papers, and it's been happening for a few weeks. So we're going to cover this. This is on Zero Hedge, as you can see right over here, right? Not a big secret of where it is. Some of the report key passages. The dangers of COVID-19 was overestimated. The people who die from corona are essentially those who would statistically die this year. There has been no more than 250 deaths from COVID-19 compared to 1.5 million deaths, 25,100 in Germany during the influenza wave of 2017-2018. The danger is obviously no greater than that of many other viruses. So basically what they're saying is state has proved itself as one of the biggest producers of fake news. And I think many people have been questioning this. Many people have been arguing about this. Many people have been kind of going back and forth of sort of thinking about, what the heck does this all mean? But let's kind of continue talking about this stuff. Many people are dying because of state-imposed corona measure that they are being killed by the virus. Healthcare system is postponing life-saving surgery and delaying or reducing treatment for non-corona patient. The government tried to dismiss the report as the work of one employee, but the 93-page report titled Analysis of the Crisis Management has been drafted by a scientific panel appointed by the Interior Ministry and composed by external medical experts from several German universities. We've seen some of the shows here in United States where the docs are trying to go live, whether on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram, and trying to kind of share of what's been going on. There were reports of hospitals are full, hospitals are empty. So it's one of those things like where you don't even know who to trust or what to believe anymore. But the saddest part of it all is that any controversial article, anything that goes against the sort of this is what we want people to know, is being shut down. Let's be honest, and I think people are getting frustrated. When we talk about this whole anger component and stuff, I think part of the anger comes from people obviously just being angry with the whole system, being angry they don't have food, being angry they don't have jobs, being angry they don't have money, being angry that they are being discriminated against, being angry that they don't feel safe walking around, being angry for being taxed for being, of different sex, all of those things. But then on top of that, I think people are starting to be angry and confused about the whole virus thing. So let's look back and kind of what happened, right? At first, it was like, oh my gosh, everything down, shut down everything, but don't wear a mask. Mask, no good. Don't worry about that stuff, but you gotta, Lysol everything 17 times a day. Then all of a sudden, they were like, no, you gotta wear a mask. Like, who told you shouldn't be wearing a mask? People were like, all right, I guess I'm done and on the mask. Then people are saying like, okay, you could, the virus lives on surfaces for like days and days and days, and we're all freaking out. We're all cleaning stuff, right? But now the reports are coming in, but like, virus doesn't live on surfaces. I don't know what you were thinking. So I think people are starting to be like, you don't even know what's going on. And that is the truth. They have no clue what's going on. The government leaders have no clue what's going on. They're making things up as they go. And, I don't have any proof for that other than just look at the United States alone. We're reopening or have been reopening for the past couple of weeks. And there's 50 states. We all have different rules, different regulations, different ways of kind of how we're open and what we're doing. In one state, it's perfectly fine for 50 people to hang out. In another state, you can't have more than 3. In one state, you can go outside and go for a walk. In another state, you can't. In one state, you have to wear a face mask. In the other state, you don't have to. Like, it is so weird. And I think that that's where people are getting, because of this uncertainty, this is where people are getting angry around the world from all of this stuff. But let us continue. Okay. So the authors of the report issued a joint press release already on May 11th. And they're basically saying that, what we're doing, we're harming more people than helping more people. And that should never be happening. And, we in the scientific and medical praxis are experiencing the secondary damage of the corona measures on our patients on daily basis. At the time of the writing, the German government had yet to react. So it's been, 3 weeks now? Inside, a leading medical doctor warns that we will feel the side effects of the corona crisis for years. And I agree. And not only are we going to feel it from the medical perspective, from the social structure perspective, but we're going to feel it from the financial perspective as well. And right here, I'm actually going to pause. We'll continue with this stuff, I promise. But right here, I want to pause and actually share something very interesting. So I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a book, but there's also now a documentary, and you can find it on YouTube. It's called Princes of Yen. And it's a very, very interesting film/book, depending on what you take. I think most people would just go for a film. It's about 90 minutes or so, plus minus, where it talks about the Bank of Japan and kind of what's been happening with their economy, how things have started, everything sort of post-World War II. And it's a very, very interesting thing if you are in educating yourself about how monetary policy, how fiscal policy, how central banks kind of do things in collaboration with the governments, and how they basically destroy the wealth of the people. You absolutely want to watch this stuff. It's called The Princes of Yen. You can look it up, watch it, and form, of course, your own opinion. But an interesting piece at the first third of the film, I don't want to say at the beginning because I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's definitely within the first third. They are talking about like how do you change people's mind when you want to switch the the direction of where you go when it comes to many different things, right? When it comes to social structures, financial structures, and that kind of stuff. And they said the best way to do it is crisis. Now, I don't know what you believe. I don't know where you stand. It's possible that there are things that are very real, but I think that no crisis is ever left untapped, and every crisis has to be explored. People have said this over and over and over again, and I agree, and that's kind of where we find ourselves. So, what they said in the film is that you create a crisis, and that crisis could come in, you can manufacture it. It could come out of creating bubbles. And how do you create bubbles? Well, you print money and you give it to people, and but you don't just give it, right? Like, you maybe structure it in a form of loans. Loans are super easy to obtain. If you gift it, even better. And eventually, what that does, it creates this inflation in assets. And we've seen that in the United States, in stocks and even real estate. And we're seeing it happen around the world. But they're also saying, they haven't said this, but I'm saying, like, we have this crisis right now that we're living through. And the current financial system that we've been living in, everybody has been calling it dead or dying for years. And the desire to change how we do things, what we do with the stuff. The governments around the world have been wanting people to get off of the paper currencies, to go more digital. And there has been strong desires to basically completely revamp our entire monetary system, our entire financial system, and make it into something different. But it's really hard to do that because you have to keep straight. You got to watch the film because it explains it much better than I do. But you got to support what's going on right now, because everything in finance is a con game. It's a confidence game, right? Everything in it is. And so if we're doing something, but I'm sort of like not feeling really good about it as a leader of what we're doing, people are not going to believe it. They're not going to trust it. They're going to exit stage left, as they say. So I have to stick with it. But in the background, I gotta work on some stuff to create the next thing that we're going on. Because in the back of my mind, I know that what we're doing is not working. We gotta shift it. So in order for me, before I announce it, I gotta work on it here on the side, right? And then all of a sudden have some sort of crisis that everybody kind of focus in one way, and then I have this thing over here, and then I go and say the announcement of, folks, we have this amazing crisis. This is what ended up happening. Look, we're going to help you. We're going to change this. Here we have this stuff, and they just replace the thing, and it happens ridiculously fast, more or less overnight, so to speak. And it changes everything. Now, what exactly this new system is going to look like, what this change is going to be, I have no clue. Nobody does. Obviously people that are working on it might have it. But I don't even know if they know exactly what they're going to do. They're just going to do something. All right. So, one of the things that they're basically saying is outside Germany, the news has virtually gone unreported. By the way, don't you love this one? Fabulous. Okay. German begins demonstrating against lockdown as early as April. The demonstrations question the entirety of Corona narrative and even more its principles, the role of Bill Gates, WHO, and all of those other pieces. The biggest such demos took place in Stuttgart on March 9th, where tens of thousands of people assembled to say no to the New World Order. Germans are saying no to any Orwellian solution the government might one day impose on the questionable emergency status, from mass surveillance apps to mandatory vaccinations. The leak report was proved their fears to be well founded. And so maybe it proves your fears, or maybe it makes you question things. I don't know. But that, there are very strong conversations about vaccinations, and mass surveillance apps are coming, and many people want it. And so now, this leads me. I mean, this was just like a rabbit hole. It was perfectly aligned today. That it was just kind of like one to another to another. I'm like, my gosh, how deep does this rabbit hole goes? So stick around with me, and you will see. So we're all suspects now. A look inside the NSA's new contact chaining tool. That's right, contact chaining tool. Okay. So there's a new book that explores NSA's contact chaining tool. We all know that Edward Snowden revealed that NSA collects and stores massive database of information of Americans' phone calls and text metadata. But then what? It is proceeded into a detailed map of your social contracts, constantly updating with new data. Every time you make a phone call or send a text, a new piece of data enters the government's hands and they update the map of your social contracts. This tool allows NSAs to place 6 degrees of separation to connect you to almost anyone. They call it contact chaining. They can map out your entire social life. And as coronavirus contact tracing comes into effect, it would be wise to remember just how dangerous it is for the government to have such detailed information on all Americans. Everyone is being investigated before they're ever suspected of committing a crime. We are all suspects now. So, a new book coming in, and of course, you can definitely take a look into it and read more about this stuff. But they're right. I mean, there are these contact tracing apps, and people are starting to recommend them, and everybody wants to have them. And they want you to have this thing on a phone, and this thing already tracks us everywhere we go. It's nearly impossible to shut things down. And we are received. I saw the news last week, I want to say, that a country, I want to say, or EU as a whole, is basically filed a lawsuit against Google that people with phones, even when they shut off all of the tracing stuff, Google still gets it. The companies still get it. So these things are ever tracking us all the time. There are certain things you can do to minimize or attempt to minimize this stuff. There are some videos on YouTube that you definitely want to check out if you want to do that stuff. But now they're getting us to volunteer stuff. I've done a video about, 4 or 5 weeks ago where I talked about the whole concept of, you go in to they used to force people to tattoo and mark themselves and stuff, and now we're volunteering ourselves, and that's exactly what we're seeing with these tracing apps and all of these different things. So it's quite silly, but here we are. So anyways, I don't know how you feel about it. Give me your feedback, your comments, thoughts, opinions. All are welcome. Love it, hate it. Your opinion and your feelings are absolutely valid, regardless of what others may tell you. Okay. So now this is the part that we wanted to cover. And, of course, because money matters, we want to make sure we talk about some of the money and investment stuff. And the FAMGs are up 15% in 2020. The remaining 495 S&P stocks are down 8%. Goldman triggered a sell-off in growth and momentum stocks when it pointed out that the 5 largest S&P 500 stocks, the FANGs, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, and Facebook, have risen to account for 20% of index market cap, representing the highest concentration on record. And I know this thing over here is coming, but I can't kill it. See, I keep on clicking on it, nothing happens. Take a look. Okay? You can see that it's never been as high as before, and the highest it was before was in the 2000 was 18%, and the 2000, if you remember, that was the tech crash. So .com boom, right, and bust, resulting in the lowest market breadth since the tech bubble. So market breadth has reached the narrowest level since the tech bubble. Look at this. So you can see kind of how far it goes. And, the further it goes, that means that the more of the companies within the index are accounted for. The narrower it goes, that means that less companies are being in. And this is, very, very sharp declines in market breadth have often signaled large drawdowns. So let's continue reading. Narrow market breadth is always resolved the same way. The market leaders catch down to weaker peers. The market is now just five stocks, and that was written as a joke, but it turns out that that's pretty much the truth. And you can kind of see of what's going on with the announced buybacks and the percent of market cap. So this is just absolutely crazy, and you can kind of see that there's no market buybacks happening over here. There's a little bit here. Then you get telecom. Um, I have no clue what this is. Cons disc. All right. So if you know what it is, put it in the chat or in the comment if you're watching this after the live piece. If this is still on, industrials and then infotech. So, okay. The year-to-date five biggest stocks are up 15%, while the remaining 495 out of S&P 500 companies are lower by a collective 8%, with the overall S&P 400 index is down 5% year-to-date compared to 4 weeks ago here. So we can actually click it over here, but I'm not going to, you know what, let's click it. Who knows? Who knows what we might find? Let's see. What do we get? Ah, okay. So this is from basically a month ago. They were talking about the FANGs are up 10% in 2020. The remaining are down 13%. So obviously that has switched quite a bit since then. So if you're interested, Zero Hedge, and then you can link it and click it and watch the whole thing. And now you can actually see, look at this. So you have S&P 500 as a whole, -5. Then you have the remaining 495, which follow S&P 500 very closely. But then look at the decoupling that the five largest ones have, right? Like they had a little bit of a dip, and they don't even follow the. Yeah, sort of, but not really, not really. And look at the disparity between the stuff. So the average stock has returned -13%. The stellar return of the five largest stocks in S&P 500, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Facebook, is the primary explanation for the large difference between the cap-weighted index and the average stock. At 20%, the current aggregate index weight of the five stocks with the largest market cap in the in the highest in history, is again, I should probably start drinking more coffee. We're approaching the practical maximum concentration of 25%, given the most long-only portfolio managers have diversification requirements and individual stock positions limitation of roughly 5%. So what they're basically saying here is that we are at 20%, and so what they're thinking is and expecting, which I am right there as well, is that we're going to see a decline in those markets, in those stocks, for a couple of reasons. A, because typically it actually catches up to the rest of them. B, you have all of these portfolio managers that they don't go 100% in on something. They divide their portfolio, right? And so they have percent here and percent here and percent here and percent here, and they build very complex portfolios often that they end up rebalancing. So what ends up happening is that if one particular investment component goes up significantly, they actually sell and then they buy something else to really rebalance portfolio. There's actually a lot of different educational tools that you can find online if you're interested to read of how does this work. I mean, you can just simply go into your favorite browser and just click like rebalancing of the portfolio, and you might see some of the stuff. One of the things is like, I think it's called the barbell or something along those lines. So don't quote me on that. But anyways, it's a real thing. And so what ends up happening is that when it shifts, they're going to be selling off, and they don't hold like a tenth of a share or a share. They hold on to the hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, sometimes even hundreds of millions of dollars within these things. And so when they sell, you feel it. You definitely feel it. So basically what they're saying is that the historic bifurcation of the market in two sets of stocks is also why Goldman is skeptical about the future upside. the broader participation in the rally will be needed in order for the aggregate S&P 500 index to climb meaningfully higher. Goldman Sachs equity research analysts currently forecast just 1% upside for the cap-weighted group of the 5 stocks. The modest upside for the larger stocks means that the remaining 495 constituents will need to rally to lift the aggregate index. So there you go. There you go. That's kind of where we are with this stuff. And again, you can see that this was the one that we just covered was done basically now. And this is, same story over here. This is, again, from April. And they're saying, more or less the same stuff. And, there's additional pieces that we are going to cover and cover some of these charts and stuff. But we are running out of time. And so we are going to pause here. But we will continue talking about some of these things and looking at the macro picture of what's going on in the world of money, business, finance, and of course your investing so that you can protect yourself. So this is where we're going to end. And again, you definitely want to come back tomorrow at onedealaway.com at 7 a.m. New York time. And we're going to go live and cover some amazing and insightful charts, including to see, where are we going with the market? What can we expect? Are we going to go up? Are we going to go down? What is going to be going on? What is going to be happening? So we're going to go out a bit deeper, not just covering the news, but, analyzing some stuff. And I hope you will join me for that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you. We're going to go and hang out and chat and stuff. So I hope you're there. And, for all of you watching on YouTube, make sure you join me tomorrow live. Otherwise, if you want, because I understand not everybody gets up this early, subscribe to the channel and feel free to put in comments, questions, concerns. And until next time, stay forever money blessed. And do remember, you are only one deal away.